If you start loving, it will change your life. Healing can occur, healing will occur. To me, true healing is love. As I said earlier, if I had one point to make, it would be to teach you not to perform, but to be yourself. And the other would be to get you to become a lover. Giving love heals you. That's what I'm talking about. A few years ago, a man came into my office who'd been a member of our cancer groups, our ECAP groups. And he sat down after waiting and he said, look, I have a brother-in-law, he's a son of a bitch, he ruined the family business, he's an exception to your rule of love and forgiveness. And he went on to tell me 2 hours worth of how bad his brother-in-law is. And I said, you know, you haven't hurt your brother-in-law, but look at all the energy you put into this resentment and hatred. You can't go to any parties with your brother-in-law, so it disrupts the family. And what are you doing to yourself? You're killing yourself, you're not hurting your brother-in-law. I don't know if he ever bought that message, to try to accept and love his brother-in-law. And what am I saying when I say love? Martin Luther King Jr. gave a wonderful sermon on forgiveness, and I would paraphrase it. He said, it's a good thing that Jesus told us to love everyone, not like everyone, because there's some people you just can't like. And I am making that point to you. I'm talking about unconditional love, the pain we all have, the thing that makes us all lovable. I listen to messages, as I mentioned, when parents have looked at children and said, we didn't want you, we wanted an abortion. We had one child because one mistake is enough. I mean, that's painful to live with. But you have to stop and say, wait a minute, I'm not that child anymore. My parents had problems too. They had parents. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, Adam and Eve were the only ones we can all blame because everybody was doing their best and, you know, but we didn't have training on how to be parents and how to love. We give a lot of messages that are not therapeutic to the children, and the children give it to their children. Somewhere along the way, you have to stop that and say, no, not anymore. From here on, I love and I forgive. I had a patient in my office a couple of years ago who said she asked her doctor if anybody with her disease ever got better. And I said, you know, if you were sitting in a concentration camp and you go up to the guard and say, excuse me, does anybody ever get out of here? I said, if you're a survivor, you don't ask, you do. She said, I was in a concentration camp and I did survive it. And I said, okay, use the same techniques now. Because when you talk to people in concentration camps, you realize how a beautiful human nature is. We did have people choose to love in the midst of all of that. I know some lovers died and didn't have a choice, but I also know there were people who walked into those camps who died in a week because they felt hopeless. And there were others who picked up stones and said, here's a pretty stone, and gave it to somebody, who took baths in their soup to maintain their dignity and loved others. And read Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning, and you can see the behavior that went on there. And George Ritchie, who wrote a book called Search for Tomorrow, tells a very touching story about a man called Wild Bill in a concentration camp called Wuppertal. He said he went in there studying survivors, and he came across Wild Bill, who was vigorous, physically active, looked very well, and he presumed he's only been here a short time. Wild Bill spoke 5 or 6 languages, was a camp translator, walked around preaching love and forgiveness. And Ritchie said, I went up to him one day and I said, you know, the people here have lost everything in their lives, and you walk around saying love and forgive? You know, how can you do that? And he said, I saw my 3 daughters and 2 sons and my wife machine gun in front of me in the ghetto. I asked the Germans to take me next. And they said, no, you speak German, we can use you in a work camp. He said, at that moment, I had to decide whether to love or hate for the rest of my life. He said, I knew what hate could do. It had just destroyed the 6 people who were most meaningful to me in my life. I was a lawyer, I knew what hate could do in a courtroom. He said, at that moment, I decided to love. And that love had preserved him. When Ritchie came across his papers, he learned he was in Wuppertal for 6 years under the same starvation diet and disease-ridden barracks, and he had survived it. And that's the power and the benefit of love. And you will see it in people who make it out of ghettos. Listen to Martin Luther King say, I don't hate the people who killed my family. It won't bring them back. They have learned what healing is about. They will tell you to live the sermon, not deliver it. That's the hard part. And what I'm saying includes a lot of self-forgiveness. I know I need it. I'm perfectly imperfect. I go around preaching love and forgiveness, but I'm human too. And I need the forgiveness and the hugs of the people around me at the hospital and everywhere else. I also know it's an imperfect world, and when driving down the street one day, I realized this is reality because I pulled up behind a car that had a wonderful bumper sticker that said, "Honk if you love Jesus," so I gently honked, and the man turned around and gave me an obscene gesture. And I have to say, this is reality. And know that you'll go out to love, and the reason is to give it, not to get it. We're not talking about "I'll love you if." That's what sets you up for trouble. Go out and love. It will heal you, it will heal the people around you.